All right, we are live. Welcome everyone to the Customer Success Show, episode 7 in sharing career journeys. I'm Brad Davis, the host and founder of Success Panda and the Customer Success Show. Happy to be here today. So some quick housekeeping before we bring on our panel is if you are a technology provider in the CS space, please send me a DM because we're going to be rolling out the technology section for customer success, and we'd love to get you listed on Success Panda. So feel free to send me a DM and we can chat more about it. So let's bring on our ladies today. We have Rebecca, Christina, and Jess joining us. So welcome, ladies.
Thanks, Brad.
Hi guys.
Awesome.
Thanks for having
So
us.
let's do some quick intros here. So on my screen, I read left to right, so I'm going to go that way. So we're going to have Rebecca, then we'll go Christina, and then Jess. So we'll do some intros, and then we'll get into some of the questions today.
All right. So, hi everyone. I'm Rebecca Novetsky. I have been in customer success on and off for the last 10 years. I'm currently between gigs, so if you know of any open roles, please don't hesitate to reach out. I live in the Washington, D.C. area, and I am a coach for Girls on the Run. I really enjoy running. This year, I set an insane goal for myself to run 1,000 miles, and I'm actually about 50 miles ahead of my goal. So, pretty excited about that. And I enjoy baking and jigsaw puzzles. That's a little about me.
I'm sorry, Rebecca, but I'm
Yes.
jealous because you can run. Like I like to run when I have like a hamburger dangled in front of me. But you're really running. You're really running 1,000 miles this year?
Yeah, I'm at about 860 miles.
And you run for fun, like
Yes.
fun.
There's a
Okay.
Dr. Seuss book. We run for fun in the hot, hot sun. Oh me, oh my. But anyway,
Well, maybe on the outro you can, like, if you have that committed to memory, you can just be like, just wax poetic about that. I think that'd be fun.
I'll see what I can do.
Okay, get it memorized. Awesome. Go ahead, Christina.
Hey, how's it going, guys? So I also run for fun. I'm not as committed as Rebecca, but I've been running since I was probably in high school. But a little bit about me: born and raised here in Miami, Florida. Born, been in sales for 10 plus years, and I actually got a crack in the cybersecurity IT space about 5 years back. Got hired that time to work for like a small Israeli startup, and then we got acquired at that point in time after a year or so. And then I went along with them, and then I was under their umbrella for another year and a half. And then I moved along because I was part of a layoff at that point in time. So in totality, just been in cybersecurity IT for more than 6 years. Right now, I'm also in between gigs, so also looking for like my next role. And that's kind of it for now, as far as intros.
Thanks, Christina. Go ahead, Jess.
Hey, everyone. I'm Jess Cohen. I'm usually based in Jersey City, New Jersey, and coming to you today from the bright and shiny eastern slope of Pennsylvania in the Pocono Mountains. I am 100% not a runner, hate running, have back problems, have knee problems. Just anyone who never, ever wants to run, please call me. But I am enjoying walks these days. It's beautiful out. My next door neighbor just had a baby. Also not a baby person, but love pushing the carriage and just walking around town for a couple of hours. It's probably more than you ever needed to know about me. I too am between gigs, which is really, I think, a theme of this show today, that it's okay, nothing to be embarrassed about, happens to all of us in tech, and we're all going to get through it together. And in my spare time these days, I've been building a lot of Lego sets. I love putting on an audiobook and building Legos and just not, that's kind of my meditation these days. Brad, back to you.
That's cool. No, I mean, I guess I'm in between. So I played soccer and I still do from time to time. So I'll run if I, am super motivated, like I'm going to score a goal or I'm going to go do something. But other than that, I enjoy watching people run, and on TV while sitting.
And eating the hamburger.
And no, I actually don't eat too many hamburgers, to be honest, but I know you couldn't tell. But anyways, let's move on, because this could quickly spiral into a self-defeating Brad moment here. So awesome. Let's do this first question, which, as the show for episode 7, sharing career journeys, and Jess kind of gave us a good lead in. Let's talk about, just in general, if you want to share like 4 to 5 minutes of what has been your career journey as far as tech or in customer success, right? So maybe how you got into customer success or how you got into tech, and then what's been your journey so far. So feel free to take a little bit more time and talk about highs, lows, however you want to take it. It's up to you. And we'll keep the order of Rebecca, Christina, then Jess, and then we'll open it up. And then if we beat this question to a dead horse, we'll move on.
Sounds good.
What an awful saying. I need to think of a new saying, because it's like, I love horses. Who wants to ever beat a horse? That's weird.
So
Right.
I'll take over so Brad can stop talking.
Yeah, there you go.
And so my journey is pretty unique. I started out in product development, not really knowing what I wanted to do with my career. And I had several coworkers who were a lot more customer facing, and I was really curious to learn about what they were doing with their interactions with customers. And I was not really given that opportunity. And then an opportunity with a competitor came up, and I went and interviewed with them, and they took a chance on me. And I basically did a complete 180. I was thrown into the field very quickly. They had no training or anything available to customers. They needed a product expert for the Americas. And on day one, I was handed a manual half in German and told, you will be at your first customer in 6 weeks. So I learned the platform and built a basic training. And then from there, every customer was a learning opportunity. I feel so bad for that first customer I visited. But anyway, someone had to be first. And really that started me on my trajectory to working with customers in the post-sales space. I also was the technical product expert. So I was involved in pre-sales demos and everything, helping the support team with their super technical questions. And it really just propelled me forward, learning what I wanted to do, building out the trainings and continuing to guide the customers' journeys forward. And I really enjoyed that. It was a pretty travel heavy role. I think customer success space looks a little different these days. Maybe some roles are travel heavy, but this role I was a road warrior, 60, 70, 80, 90%. I was on the road, and it was fun. And then travel kind of hit me a little hard, and I got burnt out, and I left right before COVID, before the world shut down. Hindsight is 2020. Had I stayed, I don't know how that would have played out. And then I moved into product management, of all things. And while I was there, I had some strategic customers that I was working with. And that was the highlight of my time as a product manager, having those strategic calls with the customers, helping them overcome their pain points. So from there, that really was illuminating that I needed to step back into customer success. So here I am trying. I've had a short stint back in customer success space, and I'm eager to jump back in head first and see where the wind blows.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I kind of have also like an interesting journey here. I think we all do. So back when I was probably in my mid to late 20s, I was, still working in sales, but I was in a spot where I was, giving away, or the role required me to give away my weekends and my holidays. I was kind of like tired of that. So I knew I had to make a change in my life. So that's when I got approached by a recruiter to work in IT/cybersecurity. Never thought I would end up in that space. But little did I know that after 3 rounds of interviews, I got the gig. I knew nothing about, leading a sales cycle, all that good stuff that comes with it. But being a startup, I had to really ramp up super fast and learn about all the ins and outs. So that was like my first taste into tech. I found myself that it was a role that was constantly evolving, that I had a chance to grow. Aside from the obvious setbacks of being a woman in IT and in cybersecurity, but it was very refreshing. I said to myself, I want to stay in this lane, and it made sense at that time. But fast forward a year and a half back, like you said a few minutes back, I was part of a layoff, something that little did I know was kind of like the norm in the space. And it's becoming more of the norm now in the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years. But it was a huge blow at my face. But then I knew that I had to kind of like, get back at it. And I soon landed another role at another IT company. So that has just been my journey so far in the IT cybersecurity space.
Thanks,
Very-
Christina.
And absolutely, Christina, what you said, we all have our own ways of getting to customer success. And I love that about this field because you meet so many different people with so many different backgrounds. If you go way, way back, I'm actually a planetary geologist. So if you ever want to know anything about rocks on the moon, just give me a call. We can talk about that while we walk around the neighborhood instead of run. But
I want to know, Jess, is Pluto a planet?
Pluto is not a planet. Pluto is, I'm sorry, but I do believe that the Pluto-Charon system, Charon is the sister planetoid or mini planet, whatever you want to call it, to Pluto in the Oort cloud. Very cool, very interesting system to study, and you should definitely look it up.
I will.
But for what it's worth, I still say my very educated mother just served us 9 pickles. I don't just served us 9. Like that doesn't make any sense anymore. And for those of you who don't know that acronym, go look it up too. So once I got out of geology, because I realized that probably wasn't going to pay me very much, the red thread through my career has actually been around organizational effectiveness, process optimization, and change management. And I did that both internally and externally as a consultant for a few different companies. And through that, I actually found myself spending a lot of time implementing different software packages. So I ended up, I was at Macy's. I was working in their organizational effectiveness department on the Macy's.com side. And we as a team started to implement a Microsoft product that was called Workplace Analytics at the time. I think it's now called Viva. But basically, I got to know the product team and the research team, and we became guinea pigs for them. And that actually turned into a role for me as a UX design researcher. And so my actual job was to travel around the world and ask people what they didn't like about Microsoft Office. Turns out there's a lot that people don't like about Microsoft Office. And it was a fascinating job. And it was really my first introduction to that world of being the voice of the customer. How do you take what a customer says and bring it back to the product team? All of that good stuff. After I left Microsoft, I realized I needed another job. I liked what I was doing. And that's when I learned about the customer success role. And I was very fortunate because Slack at the time was hiring and they were looking for CSMs. On bonus, I had a lot of experience with their main competitor, which was Teams at the time. So it was fun to go in, and I've been in CS ever since. Similar to these lovely ladies, I was laid off a couple of weeks ago and looking for my next role to continue to deliver that value and be the voice of the customer.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's really interesting sitting back and listening to how, and it's true. Everyone kind of ends up in CS on a different route or has a different story of how they got in. I know I'll just share mine. I think I've shared this before. I graduated college with a marketing degree, so I was always doing like customer facing roles, whether that was doing like sales support or just working in front of customers. And then I had this side hustle that turned into a thing. It was called Cincinnati Farmhouse Tables, and I made custom farmhouse tables and furniture. And so I got into CS because a friend told me I should apply for this director of customer success job at a startup, and I should meet the CEO. And I was like, okay, well, how big's this company? It was like 11 people, so it was quite small. But yeah, so my first job was, typically people might start like as a CSM, like entry level. I kind of got thrown into the fire and was just, trying to figure it out, which was fun because one of my favorite things about being in a startup that small is like, hey, we need to change our tiered pricing. We're going to do this. Okay, let it be written, let it be said, and it's done like 2 days later, So being able to pivot and move quickly was cool. And then yeah, since then just been similar, doing being in CS and enjoying. One of the things that I always thought is like, especially in the early days when you're using like a point solution, you're helping people. It's like, hey, let me help you like get a promotion at their job. And I remember I've had some of the highest moments were helping people like get promotions, be able to overcome a lot of their, self-doubt of how they were able to help the company and stuff like that. So there's a lot of cool moments you can have. So let's talk about how do we define career success. So I mean, this is so broad and we can take it any direction that you want, but how do each of you define like what does success look like in your career? And again, I hope that all four of us don't have the same answer. I don't think we will, but let's start with Rebecca, then Christina, then Jess.
I think defining success in my career is feeling excited and fulfilled by my job. Maybe not on a daily basis. The grind can be hard, but overall feeling like I'm enjoying and contributing to the role I'm actively in.
I like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. I have a few notes here, but just to piggyback on what Rebecca said, also finding enjoyment, fulfillment, and just being a resource like for my outside of work and also like inside of work, feeling inspired to set just some clear professional goals for yourself and just being able to reach those goals. And just also being able to achieving a good work-life balance, which I think it's tough for a lot of working women. So that to me probably it's one of, if not one of the most important things as a woman in this space. So that's what I would say to that.
I just want to applaud that because that's a really great success thing to strive for, is the work-life balance. It's awesome.
It's really a struggle. So once you think you have achieved it, something slips. So it's a constant battle, to be honest with you. So but once you get a good idea to things, you feel at peace. And there's no feeling or better feeling to being at peace with where you are in your personal life and also in your work life.
100%. And for those of you who are listening who might be saying like, hey, I don't know what success is, that's okay too. Because that's actually where I am right now. After being laid off, I'm really challenging myself to go back and say, well, what does success look like for me? And I've actually hired a career coach to kind of do this in a systematic way. And Brad offers those services here. So you should always check them out. For me, it's very much, it's changing. When I was much younger, when I was starting my career in my early 20s, I didn't want to be the CEO, but I wanted to advance up the career ladder. That was kind of what I was taught success meant early in my life. And, whether it was to make a lot of money or have a lot of power or things like that, I just kind of got on that path without really thinking about it. And then I've had a few moments in my career over time where I've had to step back and say, is that really what I want? And for now, there's no exception. And for me, I think what I'm realizing is it's not what I want. I'm going to let go of that dream. That's okay. My therapist is also working with me on a grieving process through that. Sorry, you're getting a little too much from me, but that's okay today.
We're here.
Thank you. Similar to what Rebecca and Christina said, for me, the two biggest things that I'm looking for in my next role are, number one, to contribute and move things forward. My brain is always looking to, I say solve problems, but it doesn't even have to be a problem yet. I just like to optimize things. I like to keep moving things forward. And because of that, I look for creativity. I look for a place where if I make a suggestion and say like, hey, I think we could do this better, someone's going to take me seriously, not push me into a corner. And I have now also figured out how to measure that success for me, because work-life balance is so hard and because mental health is very difficult in this field where so much is out of our control. For me, it's, do I get excited when I wake up every morning, or do I want to climb back under the covers? And like Rebecca said, if a couple of days a month you want to crawl back under the covers, hey, that's just life. It's all there. But when you find that happening day in and day out, I know that I'm not in the right place. And so I'm really working on building the questions that let me find the right place this time around.
Yeah, I like all that. You know, how I define success is a little different. I like the Monopoly man with the monocle, want to win the game and flip the board over. No, I mean, I think anybody anybody that gets to know me, like on a, you know, a more personal level, just I'm really big on there are people. I fundamentally think there are people who they make everything about them, and yes, you need to take care of yourself. But what I found is, for me, success means, can I be outward facing in my role? Can I be someone who is looking outside myself and helping other people? Like, I have problems in my personal life, but when I'm helping other people, you know what I don't think about? My own problems. So, it's I've kind of given up on like chasing a status or a money thing or whatever, because you know, anybody that's chasing impact, and what I've found over the years, and especially has been a lot more clear since starting Success Panda, is I'm actually more of a creative. Like, I really, really enjoy like creating products, creating, you know, it's interesting because I was talking to someone, they're like, you talk to most business people and they say, hey, why did you go in business? Why did you start this company? And if they say, oh, it's to make money, then okay, well, that's one vector. But how many people say, oh, I created this company to create an amazing product or service, right? And I think that's a different way of looking at the world, rather than through a financial lens, but making it more of a, I really want to create a solid company that provides value and impacts people's lives. And so when you have kind of that meaning, that meta meaning, you're able to overcome and be emotionally resilient. And shout out to Janelle Friday. I'm gonna go on her call and talk a little bit about that in 2 weeks. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. It was just like, if you're happy, you can sleep at night with the people that you work with, the work that you do, then I mean, that's all you can ask for, I think, anymore. So, all right, she'll be back. She's been coming in and out. So let's talk about like a defining career moment within your career, or an accomplishment. Like, what's something, Rebecca, and we'll start with you. What's a moment in your career where you're just like, you went home that day and you were just like, yes, I did it, or what's something you were really proud of?
I think a defining moment in my career was when the company took a chance on me to go from being internal, working in product development, to being full on customer facing. That was really a defining moment. That really set the trajectory of where I wanted to be. They gave me a chance to learn and grow and be creative on my own. I really learned so much in that role. I had a manager who was super supportive and really gave me opportunities that I would never have dreamed of in my previous role. And that really was, I would say, one of the biggest defining moments. It said that I liked helping people. Before, I had been working before I joined that team, I had been working as a ski instructor. So I already knew that I liked working with people and coaching them through challenges, whether they were not ready to use poles yet or they were scared to get on the chairlift, but encouraging them to overcome these challenges. So translate that into helping customers learn software platform. That's cool. And while I'm not currently working, I'm currently coaching little girls and helping them achieve hard things and encouraging them, working on developing friendships and relationships and how to handle hard emotions and coaching them through some challenges. And in a couple of weeks they're gonna complete a 5K, which is just a really big goal. So working with people and having the opportunity to do that was definitely a defining moment in my career, being given the opportunity.
So what you're saying is you're a good person.
Maybe I'm tuning my own horn a little bit.
That's what I got. I was like,
I think you said something very similar, that you like helping people.
yeah,
when you can kind of take the focus off of whatever is happening in your day to day at home and show up for others.
Yeah, which is hard to do sometimes, for sure.
100%.
Especially when you're in between roles, you're looking for your next thing. I think FUD takes over fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? Which you gotta do a flying elbow from the top rope onto FUD every now and then. Just don't let it take over. But that was a great response. So Jess, what do you think?
Well, now I'm thinking about you in a pro wrestling outfit, but that's besides the point.
Hand ahead, right?
There's a long backstory for that. Some other time.
For me, one of my proudest moments was actually at Slack when I actually worked with the product team to build a new feature for a customer. And it wasn't really just a feature, it was actually how all releases happened. When I was at Slack, it was kind of a pivotal moment. Like, they had great success in the B2C realm and they had great success with product-led growth. And I was there, and they were about 2 years into kind of their enterprise journey. But one thing that hadn't caught up yet was just how feature releases happened. We all know at startups, you get feature releases that come out virtually every day. There's not a lot of warning. Product is just revving through it to get out it. And everything is, whether it's quality checked or not, I'm not, downplaying the idea of doing that. But I had enterprise customers who hated that. And I would get yelled at every time a new feature came out. And then they didn't know that they had to teach all their new folks about this. And they had to change all of their training material and things like that. And so I went to the product team and I said, this is a chance for us to improve. And at first they said no. They're like, nope, this is how we've always done it. We're going to keep doing it that way. And it was really, I'd say it was almost a year-long conversation with them to really get them to understand why this was important, and for me to understand why screwing with their process was going to be challenging. And in the end, when they decided to, okay, we're going to pilot this concept of release trains, they called me and they said, Jess, we know you've got customers who are interested in this. Can you work with us to pilot this, to perfect it? And then I was part of the launch, and it's still a process that works today, and it's great.
That's a good story. What do you think, Christina?
Yeah, very similar to Rebecca. As I shared a few minutes back, I come from a totally different background. So just being given a chance to work in tech as a woman, that speaks for itself, And once I was there, I was given also the responsibility to overlook not only the North America region, but also LATAM, which was so nice. So that for me was one of the biggest accomplishments so far in my career, and yeah, just very grateful for that moment because it set my trajectory forward.
That's cool. I know for me, going back to that first startup I worked at, I remember we were talking about the product and pricing. I said, why don't we have a tiered model like everyone else does? And I'm a big believer of like success leaves tracks, right? Which is generally true. It's not 100% true all the time, but generally successful practices are kind of tried and true. You should try at least to experiment with those. Anyways, we went from a one pricing point to I gave the CEO like a 3-tiered model, and it dramatically upsold and kind of gave a different product mix and matrix of what was going on. And I remember walking out after I just upsold my first like account, basically one of the enterprise accounts to this account. I remember I walked out of the room, the CEO's desk was right there because we all like sat in the same room. And he looked at me and he's like, "Did that work?" And I said, "Yep." And I just remember the look on his face was like shocked. He was like, and then I was just like, yes, I'm going to bask in this moment. The tiered pricing strat with being able to have a different matrix of how we're going to price and sell value, right, actually worked. And it was just cool because again, that's for me, when you get back to being a creative, like creating something, seeing that it works is pretty cool. But so now that we've talked about some good things, let's talk about how do we overcome career setbacks. So we all face setbacks. We all have disappointments. And I think it's really interesting to see how some people deal with disappointment and setbacks, because I think fundamentally how you deal with challenges and setbacks shows a lot about where kind of people are at. And there's been times where I haven't dealt with it very well, and then there's times where I'm like, oh, I dealt with that pretty well. So there's a spectrum. But let's start with Rebecca, then Jess and Christina. How do you deal with setbacks? Or if you want to share a story, that's fine too. Whatever you want to
do. Setbacks can be challenging. Yeah. There's no way around it. But I think taking the time for yourself to be retrospective and grieve if need be, and then being open to what's to come, being optimistic. And so prioritizing yourself, making the space for yourself, mental health, physical health, everything out there, finding something you're passionate about and continuing to do that, to keep being inspired every day, finding your network of people to surround you with support, whether that's your family, friends, some folks on LinkedIn, a career coach. I think that really sets the tone for how you want to be. If you can stay in a negative headspace for a long time, or you can choose to look up and find the greener grass. And that's how I have taken things. It's definitely taken me a long time to be able to have that perspective. There's been times where I've dwelled on things negatively for too long, and it begins to hurt my relationships at work and outside of work, and it's just not a good headspace for me to be in. So, talking to people and finding out that there's other people who are going through similar challenges. So, having others that you can relate to really helps you overcome that. Like finding people who are going through similar things, shared experiences really helps move my needle forward. And that kind of is a network of support, and through that, just continuing to move forward, finding things that bring me joy, to turn the frown upside down, they say. Jess, you're muted.
Jess pulled a 2020.
You'd think I would know by now. I'm just being courteous, making sure you don't hear my dog bark. But anyway, I totally agree with everything Rebecca said, and I will add to it. The way I am processing my most recent setback is I'm actually diving deep into things totally outside of work, and I am currently writing a one-woman show called Am I the Asshole? I'm sorry, Brad. I hope I'm allowed to say that. it's basically kind of a little bit of a retrospective about my career, and that I have faced setbacks and I have been given feedback that I can be difficult to work with. And so now I'm channeling that into kind of something that I can learn from and that hopefully others can learn from as well. And as soon as it premieres, I will invite all of you. But in general, how do I deal with setback? It's initially, my initial response is what Rebecca described of that doom spiral. Like, I did something wrong. This is all about me. I'm a terrible person. Then I go to the next phase, which is, well, actually, it's their fault. They suck. They don't like me, right? And then once I get those two statements out of my system, then I can come back and say, okay, where is the opportunity? Where would I benefit from working? Where would someone benefit from having me working with them? And really starting to put that energy out there as much as possible. And I promise I'm not a woo-woo person, but you got to just get over it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
just to add, I think just like both of you guys, most recently, my most recent setback, just threw me off as well. But how I have been able to deal with it is just focus on myself and my personal needs, because I've learned that if I don't feel fulfilled, I cannot be the best version of myself. I can show up to job interviews as the best version of myself. So prioritizing yourself is so important, and this is what I've learned in the most recent setback that I've had. So it's so important. Sometimes a lot of people just don't do it. They just dive right in and they say, I have to go back to the job market and see what's out there, but definitely putting yourself first will always reap its rewards.
Yeah, no, I think all of that was really good, and I think in the spirit of kind of like Mental Health Awareness Month, and there are a lot of people who that I've talked to over, I don't know, this past year, a lot, one-on-one over Zoom, talking to them who are will say they're in a fresh state of being laid off, where they're still in the shock, they're still like processing everything that's going on. And I know when that has happened to me, like I've gone to my wife before, because she was, I remember her saying one time, which is a saying that I adopted. She said, Brad, have we ever been homeless, and have we ever gone hungry? And I was like, no. And she said, and we're not going to this time. She's very grounded. And I would just say it's such a blessing in life to have a partner or someone, a friend. You have to have someone in your life, a parent, whoever. You have to have at least one person in your life who can be a sounding board for you, where you can talk to them about your recent layoff, right? If you don't have someone in your life that you can talk to, DM me, you can talk to me, right? So being just able to talk about it is kind of half the healing, right? Half of being able to get over it. And so how I've kind of dealt with setbacks is I just realized, like, when you face enough adversity, you face enough challenges in life, you just realize, like, world's not ending today. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
Tons and tons of people have done this before, and then as long as you're putting in the work, you're going to reap the reward. Like, just go back to doing what is a proven way to find your next opportunity. Be interested in other people, apply for jobs, do networking. If you're putting in the work, then eventually you'll find something great. And I feel like it's really hard to have that perspective, because all of the other things around your professional life and your personal life come in at you. And then there's the whole, I have this persona where I'm trying to uphold online or within my friend group, where I can't let people know that, I made a mistake or I might be a bad person. I really like what you said, Jess, like about getting feedback. Sometimes I got feedback one time about like how I was like not doing enough to add value to the company. and it was a long time ago at a job, and I was just like, nothing that I've been able to do since I've been here, like, because it was one of these jobs where you had to basically have all of your decisions be authorized by someone else. So if they say no to all of it, right, kind of like if you're a third party like vendor and you're like working at a company, then it's just like, yeah, I mean, nothing that I've recommended has been approved. And there's so many things that can happen, but the takeaway is just make sure that you have someone to talk to, and that you're able to talk about it, because the world only ends once, and most likely it's not today. So
That is wonderful, Brad. May I add one more thing that I'm trying to take forward with me?
yes.
Um, Working through adversity is a skill. And
Mhm.
so the more that we realize while we're unemployed and searching that the world is not ending, we're also going to take that skill forward in the next job that we have. And when the customer calls at 7 p.m. at night and says, it's an emergency, you have to do this, I'm going to remember this moment and say, you know what? I actually have a feeling that the world is not ending and the building is not on fire. And we could probably, calm down a little bit together and kind of
Mhm.
look into what solutions are possible. But it doesn't have to happen at 7:30 at night. It doesn't have to happen on a weekend. It can happen a day or two later.
Yeah. And one thing I thought about before is, anytime I've had like a layoff or a setback, is if I start spiraling, is that going to help me, or is that just going to make me dig the hole even deeper? And it's hard to be in that headspace and be kind of rational, because we're emotional creatures. We're not automatons that just are always operating on the most logical level. But um, I do believe that fear is the base emotion, in that there's a muscle that we can exercise called overcoming fear, right? And people can overcome immense amount of pressure and things that they're fearful about in their personal lives, and they're comfortable in that area. But then when it comes to like their professional life, for some reason sometimes there's a disconnect.
Mm.
But it's an actual muscle we have to overcome, fear. And one of the things that I tell people, like now, especially if I were to take another opportunity with a company, is like who I work for, the boss that I have, like it's the number one thing. Like
Yeah.
the leadership and the people that you work for. I mean, I think one of the top management books in 1963 was titled like how to lead through fear and intimidation. It's like, I don't know if some people still reading that book, but it is not 1963. It's time to update the OS. But yeah, have someone work on overcoming your fear muscle, have someone to talk to. So cool. When speaking on someone, let's move on to this question, just checking time here. So let's talk about networking and leveraging a network. So we need to have people in our life. There's a lot of good people. I have you three lovely ladies, all seem like lovely people that could help someone in a career transition. So how have you leveraged your network at any point during your career, whether that's through a layoff and a transition, or just gaining new customer or meeting people in real life? How has your network or networking provided value for you in your career?
So I'm going to jump in first on this one because I literally had a breakthrough about this morning with my coach. She was encouraging me to send more LinkedIn messages to people. Like if I see I have a connection who works at a company, to reach out and say like, hey, I'm interested in this role, all that stuff. And I immediately said, I can't do that. They're busy. I don't want to overwhelm them. I don't want to be that, poke from the outside. They're probably stressed and whatnot. And she just looked at me and she's like, when people reach out to you for connections in your network, what do you say? And I say, of course, I'm happy to help them. I love connecting people. That makes me feel good. And she's like, then why are you assuming that other people don't feel the same way?
Mhm.
Right? To what Brad said, we are emotional creatures, especially in customer success. We like helping people. Don't be afraid to ask for help. There is something in my brain, at least, probably a lot of yours as well, that says, don't be a burden. actually, this is a moment to be a burden. It's okay. And you will pay it forward. I'm confident of that.
I really like that message, Jess. That's great. I definitely have been leveraging my network. There's so many people who have free resources out there, but who are also just willing to lend a hand for 15, 20 minutes, whether, you know, Brad was super awesome when we first connected. We did I did 2 mock interviews with him, and that really has propelled my interview experience. It's enhanced that a lot. But there's been other folks, someone I connected with on LinkedIn and shared my resume, and she goes, "I'm not hiring, but I'd be happy to give you 10 minutes to chat about your resume." Well, an hour later, she had ripped my resume to shreds and told me how terrible it was. But then she spent time building it back up with me. And from that point on, I got interviews because she's somebody who's a hiring manager who would have only wanted to look at my resume if it was a certain caliber. And from really, that was so instrumental. So you don't necessarily just have to ask your connections for jobs. Ask them, "Hey, can you look at my resume for a couple minutes?" Or ask for an introduction to somebody that might be a mutual connection, or say, "Hey, I see you're a mutual. We're both looking for jobs. Do you have any tips and tricks? Let's jump on a 15-minute call and share what works and what doesn't." So, I connect with everybody from hiring managers, recruiters, fellow job seekers. You can learn something from everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd be surprised like how many good people are out there that are willing to just hear you out for like 10, 15 minutes, and just give you even like life advice. Sometimes you need somebody else on the other line to hear you out and just give you some general advice on how to navigate the setbacks. So, but also like when I first got like my first job, I kind of like underestimated the value of networking. Like I was like, no, I don't want to come out as needy, I don't want to be that girl that comes out and just wants to, see what's out there. So, but with time, like you said, Rebecca, I just started connecting with people, not necessarily for like an intro, just like, oh, let's just chat about life and like where you are. I see that you're also open to work. I see that we're all in the same sector. Let's just chat and see like, maybe we can become like virtual friends. So yeah, so networking, it's needed nowadays, especially now the type of I would say how the job market is. You need to put yourself out there, even if it may be a little scary at first.
Yeah. No, I agree, Christina. You gotta take action, right? Be an agent of action. And I think that I have kids. People that know me know that I have a million kids. So I have 4 kids, which is basically a million to anybody. Is what I get the feedback. Oh, you got a million kids. Yes, it's a million. 4, a million, it's all the same. But what's interesting is similar to what Jess was saying, is that children are really good at letting their needs be known. And adults, we are trained to not do that anymore, right? We're trained as adults to be like, oh, I don't want to be a burden. I don't need, like, in a way, it's kind of like a high form of arrogance of like, I'm going to walk through this whole life being completely self-reliant and knowing all the answers the very first time. It's like no one would ever say that, right? No one would ever have that expectation. But yet so many people have the behavior of that where they don't want, and you have to allow other people to serve and help you, which is really, really hard for some people. Like I know some people that they would rather, be homeless, for example, than ask for help from someone, and if that's you, please don't do that. It's better that you're not homeless than asking for help. But yeah, as adults, it's really hard for us to kind of recognize if we've been untrained to ask for help, right? Because it's not a bad thing to ask for help. Like just go talk to any 6-year-old. Are you
Yeah.
bad? Are you a bad person because you needed help with this, jigsaw puzzle? You need to go talk to Rebecca, And of course they would say, no, I'm not a bad person. It's just, I think it's hard because adults are silly like that. So let's do one last question and then we'll sign off here. Let's do a rapid fire of just like, if you get 1 minute, if you have a 1 minute answer of, if you had to give advice to your younger self on your career, what would it be? Whoever
Does
wants to.
anybody that's not me want to go first?
I can go first. This one is prioritize my mental health more than I did and take more improv classes. I share this with everyone. I feel like improv, storytelling, stand-up comedy, all of that just makes it easier to communicate with people. It teaches you how to listen. It teaches you how to respond. It teaches you how to keep the story moving forward. And it makes for better meetings and it makes people like you. So go do that earlier.
I love that. So I think I would say is don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I've gained so much confidence over the last couple of years that I'm not afraid to have difficult conversations. Well, I am sometimes, but that's okay. But practice those conversations and they become less difficult. So putting yourself out there, trying new things and seeing what works and learning from mistakes. And it's okay to make those mistakes and just keep going.
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to advocate for yourself and for others. I mean, may not have the voice to speak up. Don't be afraid of having to rebuild yourself or rebrand yourself once, twice, 3 times. You know, give grace to yourself because you're going to have to rebuild yourself countless times, more than you would probably think. So, and don't be afraid of giving yourself that opportunity. So.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think if it were me, I would just say, don't stay in a spot that you know is not good for you. There's been countless times, well, maybe not countless, but there's been several times where I'm at a company, I know that it's not going anywhere because the product isn't good, or there's a relationship in there that I feel like is going to be difficult or challenging. And I generally get along with everybody, but yeah, it's just, there's just times when, like, I need to either move on or they're going to move on me at some point. And I think so many times and I see this a lot when I, coach people or talk with people. I think it was either Peter Drucker or Warren Buffett, said that the 3 most addicting things on the planet are 1, cocaine, 2, sugar, and 3, a full-time job. It's like when you have a full-time job and you're getting that steady income stream, you become complacent, and maybe there's signals and signs. And when that's a good thing about having a coach or a friend or someone who can, listen to your situation and kind of not be living it, but be disconnected from it. Oh, my boss said this. And you're like, oh, do you realize that they're like setting you up to, eventually get rid of you? And you're like, really? It's like, yeah, and just being able to be disconnected from it would be really helpful. But don't try to walk your career alone. Like, find a community, find people to help you, be vulnerable in the sense you're willing to ask for help, right? And I was not Mr. Ask for help in my early career. Never was. So, but I've learned, even me in my old age now. So, all right, ladies, we've reached time. Where can people tell us about what you're doing, where people can connect with you? And then we'll sign off.
I can be found on LinkedIn, Rebecca Novetsky. Brad has linked my name to post, so feel free to connect.
Yeah.
On LinkedIn as well. So more than happy to connect with you guys offline, online, just ping.
Yeah, absolutely. Connect with me. If you don't use Brad's link, you're probably going to need either my middle name, which is Lauren, or where I went to school, which is Rice, just because otherwise there are lots and lots of Jessica Cohens in the world. And if you're in the New York City area and want to go take an improv class, please let me know.
Awesome. Well, ladies, hopefully this was a fun conversation. I know I had fun. I think it's going to be beneficial for a lot of people. And I just want to thank you for coming on and sharing your stories, sharing the good and the setbacks. I think it was all great. And so everyone have a great weekend. Thanks, Rebecca, Jess, and Christina. And we will see you guys next week on episode 8. Take care.
Bye, guys.
All
Bye.
right. So I ended the stream.